Welcome to the Next Podcast with Jay Cookingham, a heartfelt journey through grief, loss, and healing. After the devastating loss of his wife, Christine, Jay shares his raw, honest reflections on navigating life without her. This podcast explores the power of grief as a medicine that teaches resilience, invites lament, and leads us to discover God's presence during sorrow. With grace and vulnerability, Jay offers hope and encouragement to those walking through grief, reminding us that we're not alone on this journey of healing.
Hello, and welcome to the Next Podcast, where we have conversations about navigating, embracing, exploring, and ultimately learning to trust as we journey forward through grief and loss. I'm your host, Jay Cookingham, and I so appreciate you joining me today. Last week, I introduced the idea that grief comes in layers, which may not be a big surprise, but they come in different levels of loss that unfold over time. And for widowers, that complexity, that runs deep. Losing a spouse isn't just losing a partner. It's losing so many different roles that they filled in your life. And some of those losses are really obvious from the start, and others surface much later. All of it requires time and space to process them. And like I said, in the next few episodes, I want to dive deeper into some of these layers. What they mean, how they affect me, and how I'm learning to navigate them. I'll also share some thoughts on how to process these losses in a way that allows us to move forward while still honoring the love that we lost. And with that, let's get into another level of loss. And today I want to talk about the loss of intimacy. Probably not the way that you think. I'm going to start with a story about Valentine's Day. I know that Valentine's Day has long passed us by, but Valentine's Day was always a little ho-hum for Christine and me. We randomly and seldomly celebrated the day over the years. Even during the sugar-coated, very sweet early days of our relationship. Partly because my bride was frugal and hated wasting money on expensive cards and what she called Valentine shrapnel. And although I do have a collection of not-so-frugal Valentine leftovers from her, and they're all stashed away in the Cookingham archives, this wasn't a day that was that special for us. However, the real reason for our lukewarm attitude towards Valentine's Day was simple. Over the 37 years that my bride and I enjoyed our covenant marriage, we celebrated every chance that we got. Every day we celebrated our marriage, not just on those recommended ones. To us, notes and cards were accessories, pleasant ones, needed ones for sure, but they played supporting roles to our daily, consistent spoken words of love and delight in each other. Celebrations were different for us. More personally intimate. To my bride, a well-timed cup of tea and some great conversation was worth more than flowers or a fancy dinner. And if I followed up on a request that she had made, well, that spoke more love than any well-versed card could. Pursuing her heart was so much more than wine and roses. It was the intimate knowledge of how to love her. Now, I'm not saying flowers, cards, and romantic dinners are bad. They're not. We just believe that there was too much pressure to pull off the perfect event, especially if you weren't already proving your love for each other all the days prior to that. Our romantic events, walks, holding hands, conversations, they were born from the daily pursuit of each other's heart. And even, yes, the romantic dinners and the candlelight and all that kind of stuff, they were all born from a daily pursuit of each other, getting to know each other, getting to know how someone thought about all kinds of different subject matters. And even the non-perfect days where anger and trust were barriers to intimacy, we worked through those things with a daily pursuit of our love for each other. Because love wasn't just about the easy days. It was also forged in the difficult ones. The days where frustration or misunderstandings made closeness feel impossible. When choosing each other required real, honest effort. But that's the beauty of true intimacy. It isn't effortless. It's intentional. And in that pursuit of each other, something sacred was built. The work of pursuit was intense romance to us. The best kind of romance. It was an expression of true love that spoke value into each other's heart. It conveyed how each difficult moment of discovery was worth the effort. It was worth the struggle, worth the pain to discover something that was so pure and holy. We have often said that marriage was designed not to make us happy, but to make us holy. That was what we called the art of intimacy. This intimacy, and I like to describe intimacy this way, it's in to me see. This wonderful sacred pursuit often took my breath away and helped me to learn how to love Christine passionately. I loved the path that my bride and I were on together, discovering new connections every day, finding ways to be one every day, and fueling all the non-romantic days, and there are a lot of those days in marriage, with true love. So yes, I mourn the loss of intimacy. I miss the art of intimacy. I miss working on intimacy with my bride. Because intimacy is more than the actual physical act of sex. It's conversational. It's relational. It's spiritual even. How else do two people become one flesh like Jesus teaches in the scriptures? How else do they become one without the marriage covenant? That kind of intimacy is beautiful and sacred, and I mourn the loss of it. That kind of intimacy, the kind that weaves two lives together through shared words and shared understanding and shared faith, isn't something that's easily replaced. It's not just about companionship. It's about being fully known and fully loved in a way that feels sacred. And when that's suddenly gone, the silence left behind is deafening. I know this is true for me, and it's true for other widowers that I've talked to. The loss of intimacy can make them question their identity as a husband and even as a man. That certainly is part of my struggle, part of my challenge. Because for many widowers, being a husband is deeply tied to our sense of purpose, to protect, to provide, to cherish, and it also speaks to our longing to be needed. And when that role is suddenly gone, it's not just the loss of a spouse, it's the loss of a calling, a place, a purpose that was born from that deep relational dynamic. The grief is not just missing your spouse, it's about missing who you were when they were here. For me, since I am a widower, I feel like I can't have these types of conversations with just anybody. And it remains the hardest part of my journey to process. It affects the way that I feel as a man. It increases the loneliness I feel for sure, and makes me miserable when I think about it. The loss of intimacy, in to me see, is difficult because of the isolation that it imposes. I can't reproduce that level of closeness with anybody else I know. Now, I have dear friends. I have friends that are closer than a brother. That level of friendship is incredible and deep and highly personable and intimate in its own way. But my best male friends don't know me like Christine did. And I don't know them like their brides know them. That level of intimacy is reserved for the one that you married. And when you lose that, you lose a sense of being. You lose a sense of belonging. You feel like you've lost your home. The marriage oneness factor is that deep and that personal. It's way beyond sex, way beyond physical touch. Although it includes that, believe me, I miss that level of intimacy as well. But it's the connection that used to remind me that I was chosen by someone special. They delighted in me. They knew me and still delighted in me. I miss that level of intimacy. Because intimacy isn't just about being close to someone. It's about being known by them in a way that no one else knows you. Christine saw me, she understood me, and loved me not just for who I was, but for the man that I was becoming. That kind of love fuels confidence and security and an identity. And when it's gone, it leaves a space that no one else can truly fill. I miss that. I miss that because my love language is one part physical touch and one part words of affirmation. Christine not only knew that about me, but she raised that kind of loving me to an art form. And I miss those levels. And I mourn the loss of them daily. Of course I do. Of course I do. That's the weight of losing intimacy. Not just losing love, but losing the part of yourself that was built within that love. But I also know that not every widower had the kind of deep, intimate connection that I was blessed with. I know that. And that loss carries its own weight. Maybe you're listening today and maybe your marriage was not so close. It was distant, it was strained and filled with so many unspoken words. Maybe intimacy, true connection was something that you longed for but never fully had. That kind of grief is different, but no less real. Because sometimes we don't just grieve what we lost, we grieve what we never had the chance to experience. And it's too late to make that happen. If that's you today, can I just say that your grief is valid too? It's okay to mourn the love that wasn't. It's okay to acknowledge the ache of unfilled longing. And it's more than okay to bring that pain to God and to let Him into the places of disappointment and loss. Because the truth is, God sees your heart and He knows the depth of what you're carrying, even the parts that were left unfulfilled in marriage. So whether you're mourning a loss that was deep or grieving the loss that never fully came to be, the weight of that loss is real. The weight of losing intimacy is real. And the hardest part? There is no clear roadmap to what to do with it. Grief doesn't come with instructions, and there's no checklist that makes the aches disappear. So how do I carry this loss? How do I live with the absence of something that was so defining for me, so deeply woven into my identity? Honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out. Some days the ache is overwhelming. And trust me, I've searched for some practical steps, looking for anything that might help to ease the weight of all this. But here's what I've learned. Practical steps don't always apply and don't always work the way that we expect. We read books, we get advice, we try different things, hoping that something will make the pain easier, more manageable. And when those steps don't work as advertised, it can feel discouraging, like we're failing at grief, like we're stuck in something we should have moved past by now. But grief isn't something that you master. It's something that you learn how to carry better. And carrying it takes more than just practical solutions at times. It takes something far deeper. And for me, that means bringing my grief into my relationship with God, letting Him into the loneliness, the longing, and the ache of missing my bride. And while it doesn't take away the pain, He reassures me that I am still known, I am still seen, and I am still very much loved. I don't have all the answers, but I do have this. God has never left me to carry this alone, and I am so grateful. Isaiah 41:10 reminds us. He says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Thank you for joining me today on the next podcast. I hope this episode has encouraged you and given you a new way to explore your grief with faith and honesty and trust in God. If this episode has resonated with you, please leave a comment or review. It helps grow my podcast, and I do appreciate it so much. And please share it with someone who might need to hear this today. And remember, God is good. God is always good. He always answers out of His goodness. Learning to trust His definition of good is so key to moving forward. God bless you, and I'll see you next time on the next podcast.